are here in New York City at 111th in Amsterdam with southern limits of Columbia University's campus. We here getting some content done. Just wrapped up some meetings again, which you guys will definitely see the fruits of those meetings very, very shortly. So, you know, the New York-Detroit connection has a lot of different avenues and rivers where those two run through, right? And some of the guys that I met here at Columbia, and shout out to Jimmy Coleman, shout out to Money Wall, shout out to Big J, Tony Giles, Prime Minister Pete Nice, and the likes and that whole crew. And another brother who, shout out to Ben Horowitz, who I met in this journey, was a brother by the name of Lamont Bridges, AKA LB. So from this connection up here at campus, through Jimmy Coleman and Ben Horowitz, me and LB end up living in Brooklyn. And they used to have a little magazine called The Village Voice. One of those places where you advertise for free and tells you who's in town performing concerts, this, that, and the third. And in the back, they'd have all these advertisements for escort services. You know, women for entertainment. Now, we still relatively young, you know, we in our 20s, and you'd be seeing in these ads, it'd be like, superstar Brazilian model, available for escort, $125 an hour. So, I'm reading this, and my man LB say, man, that's crazy to give a woman $125 an hour just to go have lunch with you. And I tell LB, I'm like, nah, bruh, you gotta know there are services being provided for that kind of fee. And he's like, nah, man, it ain't like that. They just take your money and sit down and have some coffee with you. And I'm like, bruh, check this out. The world don't work like that. At $125 an hour, I assure you, there are services being exchanged. There are womanly services being provided for that $1.25 an hour. So long story short, LB goes back and forth telling me that it don't work like that. So I tell him, well, let's make a bet, man. I'm gonna call one of these escorts to come by. If they talking about us sitting and talking and having tea, I give you $125 too. If it's what I say it is, and she's like, let's have some fun, you know, and I can provide some of my womanly services, then you reimburse me for the $1.25. We say, yeah, okay, bet is done. I call the service, tell them I want a Brazilian girl, well endowed, yada, yada, yada. They say, okay, 45 minutes. Now, Money Walt ends up coming by, God rest his soul, a brother by the name of Larry Vincent, another Columbia guy going on to become a lawyer. We sitting around doing what we used to do back then, getting nice. We didn't forget all about the bet. We on our way out to a bar, this limo pulls up, and this Brazilian woman, well endowed, dressed very skimpily, gets out and it hits us this shit. Oh, damn, we made this bet. Well, we go back into our brownstone, we sit down. Her name was Lisa. That was her working name. And basically I'm like, okay, so it's $125 an hour. She's like, yep. I hand her the $125. As soon as I hand her the $125, she's like, living room or bedroom? And I'm like, bedroom. LB's mouth just drops wide open, and he goes in his wallet. He already knows he's lost the bet. Me and Lisa got to know each other, if you know what I mean. And thing was, from winning that bet, it would be the most expensive bet I ever won, because we got to know that we could write checks to these escort services. We could use our American Express, you know, and to be honest, we became like kids in a cookie store, because it just kind of blew our mind that we could order whatever. It was like ordering pizza. You in the mood for Brazilian? Order Brazilian. You in the mood for blonde-haired, blue eyes? Order that. You in the mood for dark chocolate? Order that. Man, we blew out. I was using Pop's company, American Express, and I done lost track of how silly we been. And I get back to Detroit, and Pop's like, nigga, you done bought a $10,000 worth of PUSSY in 6 weeks. What the fuck is wrong with you? Needless to say, that American Express card got canceled. But just another, in this whole journey of us being in New York, man, I really grew up. I really grew up in this town. I grew up in the game as far as working for Pops and Mr. B, learning how the money got rents, meeting the Colombians, meeting the Dominicans, and then some silly anecdotes like that. Meeting New York's finest escorts, which I will go on to share that knowledge with Hetty Baby and the rest of the crew when they would come to town. And so shout out to all those girls. You guys helped make our New York experience. And again, to quote the notorious B.I.G., woe is me, that's what I get for tricking. The most expensive bet I ever won. So it's your man, CRP Jr., Motown Mafia Podcast, Big Boss Filmworks, New York City, Amsterdam, 111. Remembrance and cultural spots, got the cathedral, got the animal sculpture. Just a really cool part of town. Although my next stops will probably be the Caribbean and South Florida, as far as living the times we had here in New York City, will always be a part of the memories. And look forward to Motown Mafia Part 2, the YBI era, where we really go into, again, how New York City and what was happening in Detroit, how connected New York, Broadway 145th, Manhattan 107th, how that's all directly connected to Highland Park, Geneva and Hamilton, French Road and Mac, 6 Mile and Linwood, and the whole story. We're going to tie it all together for the family out there. So again, it's your man. You got Big Lou back behind the camera while we in NYC doing what he do. And make sure you guys are hitting, if you're checking it out on YouTube, like, share, subscribe. A lot of this stuff, though, is going to be available on the Patreon channel. So you'll be getting all the information on that, because really, all jokes aside, it's about to go live. We're going to have some content and some stories that you can't get anyplace else except for on Big Boss Filmworks at Patreon. So it's your man, CRP Jr., doing what we do live, New York City. So nice, named it twice. Out.